Okay, next up we're going to set up some throttle curves. Now the reality is, when you start creating models off the back of your template, you're then going to overwrite most of these throttle curves. Or if you're using the inbuilt governor, then this goes away anyway. But it doesn't harm to set up some base default throttle curves and then edit them as you see fit as you go down the line. So to do so, we're going to go under Model Menu, scroll right, go to Throttle. And this is what you'll be presented with as a throttle curve initially. You can also see what flight mode you're in as well. Now we need to set the throttle curves for every single flight mode that we created. In my use case scenario, I have got motor off condition, auto, then I have bank 1, 2, and 3, and I've also got throttle cut. And you can see helpfully that it changes the curve for each flight mode you're in, and it shows you what flight mode that you're editing, just as a reminder. So let's just go back into bank 1. So this is what you'd get presented with initially. So to change this, say, to a flat curve, go to 1. You can see it's now a flat curve there. Now let's say I wanted 60% output for the ESC. We have a scale that goes from -100 to +100, and 0 equals 50% output. And you can see those numbers here. 0% on the graph equals 50% output. So you could do the math to say, okay, if I want 60%, that's 50 plus 10%. And then you double the 10 to give you 20. So let's just do that. And we get 20%. And 20% then gives you 60% output. But that's the really useful thing about Spirit. At least it tells you. So you don't need to worry about doing the math. Just scroll this number up and down until you get that value. Now you notice every time I've made the change, I then come out of the drop down, and then I would change to a different flight mode to change the throttle curve. So for instance, let's go to the next one. There we go. So just make sure you're out of the scroll before you change your flight mode, otherwise it might not save the value. Do that for each of your flight modes, ensuring that all flight modes are covered, including your throttle cut, for instance, if you've set one like I have. I say, if you're using the Nitro governor or the Spirit governor, most of this work goes away afterwards, and we'll talk about using the governor later on. But initially, just set up some values for each of the flight modes and you're good to go. Let me just talk about the throttle off at the moment. So for instance, for a Nitro, at the moment I've got throttle off as -100. In reality, I would actually increase that to, say, 20%, well, 15 to 20%, and that should allow my engine to idle perfectly okay, and then we can tweak that accordingly later down the line, but ensuring I still have a throttle cut flight mode as well to kill the engine. That's throttle curves.